First.
Okay, so the first question here is, why do we have fluoride in our water? I'm going to start by sort of analyzing the question a little bit, perhaps, by saying that to raise a question like that would seem to imply right away that there's something problematic about having fluoride in our water, and that is not something that any of us can gainsay, to say no, possibly it is. There are problems, but I think what we have to understand and look at is why the question has arisen in the first place. And that is that clearly it seems to me that somebody somewhere along the line decided that fluoride would be good for everyone. And therefore it was, something that the powers that be, if you will, those people who sit in localities, which are boardrooms and places like that, in the belief that they are doing something good for everyone, which is an honest, useful belief at many levels, go out and make a decision for everybody around us. When it comes to something like trouble arising out of that fact, then in that moment they find themselves having to defend it, their action in the first place, and they find also that there are lots of people opposing what they have done, because they now have to take up their own little cause in some fashion. What happens as a result is, instead of an ordinary, I believe that all human beings have a natural condition of disagreement that occurs. But we do not ever need to take that into a level of conflict. Conflict occurs when we get entrenched within positions we take within a disagreement. Disagreement is inevitable, it's natural, all the time. When we start up on something, like you start up a new technology of some kind, we might have very good objectives, etc. in doing that. And we find that something goes wrong with it. We must be prepared for that moment, for something going wrong. And be open that, okay, we went in with an objective, it didn't quite work out that way, let's see if we can adjust it a little bit. But what happens is, instead of that, because each location seems to want to assert itself and its own rightness, that disagreement, instead of where one side says, no, this is not good, and the other side says this is good, and instead of that, what we can do is arrive at a position together, which is the right one. Let's, compromise and get there. Instead of that, we hold to our positions. And then we say that, okay, fluoride ought not to be in the water, so now all of a sudden I'm taking out the position that, no, it has to be in the water. So the original reasons get lost. The original idea of helping everybody. Because if you were trying to help everybody, you'd say, okay, if you don't like it, then let's find another way to help you. See? So in that sense, we have fluoride in the water because all of us take entrenched positions on things. If we didn't take entrenched positions on things, we might have still had a form of fluoride in the water, but which would not have got anybody to raise the question of, why do we have fluoride in our water? It would have been a much more, an easier to sort of traverse kind of world instead. So we have to take away our entrenched positions. I hope that's not a real answer to that. The second question is, what does democracy mean to you? I ran into somebody once who talked about at length about the ideas of participative democracy and representative democracy, and that is that participative democracy at some level is what we want to go for, that everybody has a hand in acting in the world in a way that they feel that their action has some influence in the world around them, that they are useful in some way, that their lives are being led in a way that is reasonable as a human being. The problem is that because of the practical difficulties of participative democracy, and because of the underlying sort of greed for power that we've allowed to creep into all of ourselves, we have created a situation where we look at the practicality of participative democracy and say that's too hard to do. And so we go for, okay, as long as we have some people representing us, we're good enough. So that we go into representative democracy as long as we can elect them in some fashion. We have handed it. But then we start losing our sense of what power we have to elect them. We say, oh, I'm just one person, how can I have any kind of influence in the world? So we don't feel we're participating anymore in the democracy. And then the same old problem with the fluoride, when a few people start making decisions for others, starts coming into play, and the representatives start understanding democracy as their own power, in some sense, to do good for everybody. They do believe they're doing good, but if it's not experienced as good, they refuse to accept that. They say, no, you should be experiencing it in this fashion. They're not, as one of my favorite philosophers, Krishnamurti, says, we have to always keep the question alive. If the question exists, that means it's a concern for somebody. We cannot just say, okay, we've solved that problem, put it away, the answer's done. A democracy, therefore, is where everybody has a sense that they can continue to raise their questions, put them on the table, and take responsibility for getting it out to other people, the ideas out to other people. But none of us take that, very few of us take that responsibility. So democracy has to be both things. It is us taking responsibility, and it is other people, if we give them power, accepting also what they do and learning how to dialogue with them in order to arrive where we want to arrive.